Are you looking to level up your business and or simply crack the code on how to shift from self-employed to CEO of your business? Wherever you are in your entrepreneurial journey, it's never too early or late to scale, level up, and shift up. Hi, I'm Kelley McNicoll, host of the Shift podcast. I'm a business coach, consultant, online educator, brand strategist, and marketing expert. And I'm genuinely so glad you are here. On the Shift podcast, we will share the real talk behind what CEOs need to know and take action on to grow, scale, be and remain relevant and successful, and to help others of you shift from that self-employed grind to leaning into and holding that position as the CEO of your company. So let's dig in and start taking massive action. Good day, everybody, and welcome to today's episode. Our two guests today are Amber Weyrauch and Lani Cavazos. Amber is the owner and founder of Socially Inspired. It started out as just a dream for the owner-operator. As a mom of three teenage daughters, I should specify. It was important she set the example and truly lived the words, "You can be anything you want to be." When she launched Socially Inspired, she never could have imagined where it would take her. While the Socially Inspired team may have grown and services have been added, one thing is still the same: their desire to link arms with other entrepreneurs who are chasing their own dreams and want to grow their business. Socially Inspired helps you as a business owner hone in on your own strategic thinking, build a plan, and then walk you through the execution of that plan. So welcome, Amber. And Lani is the retreat planner. So she's curated over 80 hybrid events, from private retreats and masterclasses to conferences and immersive experiences. She's had the tremendous opportunity of collaborating with talent from across the globe. Past collaborators include the likes of Joe Dispenza in awe-inspiring places such as Egypt's pyramids and others. So welcome as well, Lani, to the episode. I'm so happy to have both of you here today. Lani, why don't you start and tell us a bit more about you, what you do, how you got into this really cool job?
It is a really cool job, right? I enjoy it so much. I really can't explain sometimes in words, sometimes it's just hard for me to even explain it, because it feels so aligned with myself that it's just always amazing even for myself. Sometimes I catch myself, I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm really doing this. But I started working on events 18 years ago. So I have been doing events for quite some time. And then I moved into the marketing world. I was working for Marriott for the corporate office for Middle East and Africa. And I was doing quite a few activations for different areas and countries. And I was doing events, but I was also doing loyalty marketing. So I really found my passion, where you bring in like psychology of people and marketing, and then the events and how you can weave them all together to create an event that really tells you something. And when you leave, you actually leave with a gift. So it's not just a gift bag that you're going to get when you're leaving the place. There is something that this experience marked you in a way that actually takes you somewhere new, like maybe something in your life just changed. Maybe it can be small, but sometimes it's actually big. Sometimes people make large decisions based on the experiences that they have. And at the end of the day, I was working, and then I have my spiritual life on the side. So they were going into separate ways. They were not really correlating. It was like, I do my job, and then in the evenings I meditate, or I do yoga, and I do sound healing. And I was doing all these practices, but they were completely separate. And when actually COVID happened, I was in Dubai, living in Dubai in my beautiful apartment on the 52nd floor. And one day I woke up and I'm like, this is enough. I had enough of this. I really have to go and explore something for myself. And I'm kind of done with Middle East. No, it was beautiful for me, 6 years, amazing. But I just felt it was the time to come back closer to home also, it brings, like COVID for me brought so many beautiful emotions of how like you should be connected with family, etc. And when I came back, I was like, okay, so now I have to reinvent myself. What do I do? And actually, just like the retreat started coming to my life. It's not like I even was looking for it. And then one day I had this aha moment where I was like, oh, this is what I'm supposed to be doing. It's actually my spirituality, my connection, what I want to bring into the world, like my purpose, connected with all my skills that I learned from like all my years in the corporate world and office jobs and everything else. So that's how the retreat planner was born. I wanted to create a place and a space where people can come and I can help them create their retreats of their dreams, just bring wildest dreams into reality. What are you thinking of, like right now I'm building this nonprofit organization that's called Anima Mundi, that is going to be a symposium for sound and electromagnetic waves. So we're bringing futurists and scientists and creators and entrepreneurs all together, and we're creating this kind of laboratory where new ideas can be birthed. So because science, everyone is so secluded from time to time, they don't get the time to share the ideas and innovation. And for us, this is a laboratory where innovation can be accelerated. So this is the type of projects I'm working on. It's like things that are actually in a way to change humanity. Even if it's one person, it's more than one, but just really creating this space for people to just be better and just at the end of the day connect with their hearts. If they connected with their hearts and nothing else came out of it, I'm good. Like I'm like jumping with joy, because I think this is one of the most important things that we can do in life, like really stay connected to our hearts, let the mind rest a little bit. It's been there for quite so many years, and just hone in and come back into what really matters, and do things from a space of love. And that's kind of it.
Thank you for sharing that. I know actually just when you were talking about it too, because I was thinking about I listen to lots of podcasts, but one that I pretty much never miss is Ed Milet. I think he's a fantastic interviewer, and also just his guests when he brings them on, they're always very interesting, and even ones that you think like, why am I gonna, what's going to be the interesting story in this guy? He brings it up. There's really a purpose to why he does it. So, anyways. He did have Dr. Joe Dispenza on, and of course it makes sense that you would have worked on something that involves him, because I can see that kind of thought process and all that aligning, the power of the mind, the power of healing, all of those things. Did you work with him recently?
September last year.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah, September last year, but I have a few more projects coming up.
Mm-hmm.
That I cannot tell it right now, but
top secret. Okay. We'll get to find out when the time comes, right? You'll share it all with us then.
Yes, I definitely will.
Fantastic. Thank you. Well, Amber, tell us more about you. I know we touched a little bit on it, like in the bio that I shared, but I'd really love to learn more just about what got you on this journey, how you've been enjoying the journey so far, those kinds of things.
Yeah, it's so funny. You've mentioned that during COVID, that was really a turning point for you, and how that opened your eyes to things that maybe had already been there, but that was the moment. And that was very similar for me. I was in a role that obviously I was working from home during that time. And during that season, I was able to be more present with my kids because we were in the home together. And when we started to transition out of that, I realized that some of the things in my life were out of alignment. I needed to make a shift, but I wanted to do it with intentionality behind growing something that allowed me to see success and be present. And that's where Socially Inspired was born. I started very small, growing a VA specifically in social media management and digital marketing. And over time, from referrals and growth, I started really seeing a boom in the number of clients that were coming to me. And that was when I realized I need to grow this. I want to scale this. I'm going to hit a capacity. And so really started looking at what it meant to scale and to grow. And that was when I first brought on my first team member. Now I have 5 people who are on my team, and we all support each of the clients. So it's not like one person works with this client and one person works with the other. We have a very collaborative approach where we each one bring our level of expertise and excellence to the table to really provide amazing social media and digital marketing management for our VA clients. And it's been such a joy to be a part of a team and have some of that collaboration. My team is all over, so it's all virtual. I don't actually get to hang out in person with any of the people on my team, but they are all so great at what they do. And then that has provided some space for me to start shifting and moving into a different role. So while my management side is being run by my amazing team, I am starting to make this shift towards the coaching side and really then providing coaching services to entrepreneurs and small business owners that need a really strategic approach to their social media and their digital marketing. So hopefully we would be able to help them come up with the plan, and they could run with that if they wanted to, or they could then have us help with the management and the execution of that. So that's the next frontier for Socially Inspired. I just launched my own podcast a few weeks ago, so that's been really fun. And I don't know, I believe that anytime you stop growing, it's just stagnant. And so for me, it doesn't always have to mean more clients or more whatever. I always want to be growing. I always want to be stretching myself. And you mentioned I do have 3 daughters. And it's really important to me that they watch their mom grow constantly through her whole life, and that they are then encouraged to do the same. So that's Socially Inspired in a nutshell.
No, that's great. And you're totally right about the growing and expanding piece. And I know both of you guys touched on the COVID aspect. And, in many ways, it was a trauma for our whole globe. But really, a lot of us took the opportunity to see it as this turning point, to see the benefits of, right, which included things like those of us, like I've worked from home for a long time, but validating the people who work from home. I mean, I have friends who have very successful businesses, still run them out of their house 20 plus years later, right? So it kind of validated that piece, because even the larger companies, the Nikes and the Lockheed Martins and all that, everybody had shifted to the home. So it shifted kind of that view, but then it also got people to, as you both touched on, just kind of understanding that we can take this time to be panicking about the fact that we're all on lockdown, or choose to become more present in our everyday lives for ourselves, for our friends, our family, because we wanted to be like feeling more and not like we were just going through it. And so that was a choice that we all made. So congratulations to us and everybody else who does that. And, to not be paralyzed by it, but in fact, embrace it. And then to start really recognizing, just like you both touched on, and I think a lot of people feel this, that what's in alignment with me, right? Like we got to stop just kind of running through our lives and like doing it, and actually start living it, feeling it, enjoying it, making this space for ourselves. And that took a lot of growth and expansion from, I think, all of us as a whole. And really think about the examples we're setting. And I think that's too, like one of the reasons why I've set the podcast up the way that it is because this is just another way to exemplify leading by example, showing growth, expansion. How do we do that? That it is possible, because we are spending so much time online, we can get overwhelmed with information or those things. So COVID has had many blessings to me, I think, and it sounds like both of you as well, as stressful as it was. I know I was ready to have my kids get kicked out of the house. Like as soon as it was spring, I was like, oh, thank goodness, get outside already. Go do something, go help the neighbors with their gardens or something. Like this time has been great. This time has been great. So It's really good to get a line like that. So the reason why I matched you guys today, which you both know, but I'll tell our listeners a bit more about, is because Lani is really in this place of working with her VAs, learning how to utilize them better, maybe thinking ahead to what's next as she keeps growing and expanding, to not just like give things to other people and delegate, but then so now when we do this, it gives us more time and space to be working our businesses, right? As opposed to just always working in it. I know for myself, it's not even, that I can't do all the things necessarily, right? There's lots of things I could do, but then where does that leave the space for the other things, both business and personal? So just to even think about like crafting an email to somebody that's intentional, right? It's like you need to have a bit of a creative space and flow. Otherwise, you're just throwing out stuff and it's not going to come from this authentic place, which is what's important to me. Or just thinking ahead and planning. So we need to have that creative space and the ability to kind of look over everything as opposed to just be in it, right? So seeing the forest through the trees. And even on a personal side, it frees up that time because that you don't actually have to be sitting there thinking about those things late at night. You've handed it off and other people are helping take care of those things. It's not just you all the time doing all the things, wearing all the hats in our business. So I think that this is such a key piece to that. So I'm super excited to just kind of see what you guys talk about. I'm going to mostly stay out, but I'm kind of just here to help moderate, or if I think of questions that I know might be relevant, I'll pop in and do that. But why don't I let Amber start maybe with some questions to Lani and kind of let you guys take off with this.
Yeah. So I'm curious, when you first hired your first VA, what was the kind of critical point that you hit where you're like, I have to get someone on my team?
Yeah, so well, for me, it was because I think, at that point, I had a lot of legwork to be done. Mm-hmm. So I had a lot of research. I was like researching like 200. I knew I was going to start researching like 200 scientists, like I had like a lot of like research coming up, like in a number that I knew I could manage if I wanted to do it myself, but I didn't want to, because I knew that my time is better utilized in other ways. No, for me, I work a lot with energetics. So for me, if you put your energy on this part, then you're not leaving space for something else, right? So I did the first ones because I wanted to see how I wanted them done. And then from there, I was like, okay, now you can take over. So this was really the turning point for me to hire a VA. It was like the amount of work that required a lot of computer hours and wouldn't allow me to be in my creative space. Mm-hmm. That is where I really thrive, like I can do everything else. Like I've done it before. It's not like I can't. It's just I want to be able to be in my creative space because this is where I like really do the best, no? And this is where my like highest value comes through.
Mm-hmm. Well, and the point of VAs is to free you up to do what only you can do, and that you hand something off that you could do, but it's not where you really need to put your focus. So when you went about hiring a VA, what was your process for that? Did you seek out referrals from other people? Did you have a job description? What was your process for hiring?
Yeah, so I asked for referrals first. And also I am part of this community of like women who are like thriving in the world. And then I also asked them for people who were interested in. And then I had like maybe 6 or 8 interviews. And I found a girl that she was, maybe not specifically already trained for what I wanted, but I really liked her energy and her availability in a way of like being very open, and like really eager to learn. Because for me, this like if you know something but you don't want to learn anything else, for me doesn't really work that much, because I do teach a lot to people because there is so many things that I can do that I always take the time to just teach them, because at the end of the day later on it's gonna pay back in a way. And also if then they leave to another job and they're more capable of doing something, then I'm happy, you know. So yeah, it was mainly through referrals, and yeah, and then from there.
When I first brought my first VA on, I realized very quickly that I did not have a great onboarding structure. That the process for onboarding someone and handing something off, a lot of things were in my brain, but I didn't have those things written out in, SOPs or anything like that. So that was actually something that I learned really quickly, that I needed to have a better structure for that. So question for you, do you have those job descriptions and the SOPs? So let's say your VA doesn't stay with you, that you have a really smooth transition for offboarding and onboarding.
So actually, funny that you asked. This is something that I had on like my list of things to do, but because she was not really doing all the work that she started to get behind, then we never got to that point. And now I kind of like have to get a couple of those done because I know they are a priority. But yeah, like we didn't get to that part because then, I had to come back and just give her more structure and timelines and be very like, so by tomorrow I need this, in 2 days I need this, like really to start to manage her. And I never liked to be managed when I was an employee, and because I know that I can do things properly. So I don't like to manage people, but I guess at some point it took me like 3 weeks to realize I had to manage her, but like,
it's never fun to feel like you're putting, but I do think that expectations are actually the kindest way for us to manage, to have very clear expectations, clear deadlines, and clear deliverables, because without that clarity, even though it can feel like you're putting something on them, but it actually is freeing them up. They can operate inside of those expectations and operate inside of those deliverables, as opposed to feeling as if they're just kind of grasping in the dark. So I have found that with my team, I have very, very clear distribution of tasks and very clear deadlines. And if there's a need for a moving of the deadline, that's something that they know that they can request, but it's not something that they necessarily just have like an open-endedness to. Okay. So with your virtual assistant, obviously they're not with you physically, geographically. So how do you guys operate? How do you pass assignments back and forth? What is your communication style and platform?
So usually, right now I'm not using a platform with her. I used to use before Asana. Yeah, okay. I was using Asana for like project management. With her, I was not really using any platform. I was more like, I was having like weekly meetings with her just to check on what was going on. I've been also super busy, to be honest, like with a lot of travel. So that has also been something that from my side, I haven't been able to give her these like structure of like, okay, every Monday we have a call at this time and I'm always there, I always had to like kind of shift it. And and this is completely on me, it's not her, but just like life has been so busy that is that to a certain point, I can't, like I was in LA like for 11 days. Now I just came back. I'm like flying back in 4 days, like it's just a little bit hectic at some times. And then other times I'm just like, okay, I'm going on holidays and I take 3 weeks off. Yes. But so we were having mainly like calls and then like daily communication on like WhatsApp to just like see what's going on. I think the times when I was like, basically, I feel that when I was like kind of, I'm going to call it like my traveling holidays, because I do travel and then I work and then I do some holidays, like a few more days. I think she also kind of went on holidays on her own, like she relaxed in a way, like, oh, she's really doesn't have that much access to internet. So then, there's not so much rush in a way.
Well, I think using a platform like that for project management is fantastic. And I would encourage you finding a way to incorporate her into that. I use Trello. It's very similar, but I have my own board that I use. It's just mine. But then I have my collaborative board where my team is all on it. And then inside of there, I can put checklists and due dates. That also allows me to see as they're moving through a checklist and they check things off. Oh, okay. that graphic design is now done and available for download. That scheduling has been completed and I can go and do a quick quality check on that. So there's a lot of those little pieces where they are communicating with me through using our Trello board without it feeling like there's a task manager hanging over them and that they have to report into me. And so it creates a lot of accountability without the overbearing element of me constantly being in their inbox or boxering them or something like that. It also provides a lot of flexibility for them to work when they want, which is the whole point. For most VAs, you either are doing it as a side hustle, a side business, or you're probably supporting more than one client. So having the ability to be super flexible with when you work, it is really nice, but you do also have to have those deadlines, because the reality is when work has to be done, it has to be done. And a lot of times the work that I'm understanding your VA is doing then segues into what you need that work in order to move to your next point. You need that research completed. So her not completing her task will ultimately hold you up in completing what you need to get done. Is that correct?
Yeah, it is. Because the way I plan everything, it's all like kind of like in a circle. So everything feeds something else.
Yes. Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. And and it's the same for us. If my graphic artist doesn't get her content completed, then my scheduler can't get her content completed, then, it all trickles down. So that's why, having a really close working relationship with your team, whether it's one person or a dozen, is so important. One of the other things that I do is I set up in my schedule. This was where I felt like I was failing my team. And you said that's on me, not on her. This is where I felt too. I was not dedicating time, blocking it out for my team to really be focused on what their needs were to execute their task. So I now on Mondays, it could be any day, but Mondays are my team day. I do not schedule client-facing calls. I do not take on anything else that if a client messages me, unless it is urgent, it's going to wait till Tuesday. On Mondays, I assign tasks. I'm available for meetings with my team. I actually have what I call a working lunch every Monday at noon. I hop on Zoom and my team knows that they can hop on. We might just sit there and work on things individually. They might have a question for me, but I am making myself, it's kind of office hours. I'm available for them to pop in and kind of open door policy. What do you need to talk with me about? But since I started shifting my focus to where I have one day a week that is dedicated to my team, I have seen my productivity change and I've seen their productivity change. And that was a game changer for, I believe, us being able to be more on top of our task and them feeling cared for in a way that then makes them hopefully excited about working for Socially Inspired.
Can I ask a quick question? Because, and Lani, I don't know if you're one of these people or not, but some of us are more like airy than others, right? Like, so for some of us going like every Monday, I'm going to do this thing makes a lot of sense. Like we should just plan it and schedule. For other people, they find it hard to pin down. So do you think it's necessary for everybody to kind of pin down a few key specific things in order to have productivity? Or do you think it's something that can be a slightly moving target, right? Or should it be something more regimented? So for example, Lani, if you're traveling, then you want to maybe make sure you're not traveling on that day or time, right? You might travel the day before or later at the end of that day. And then at least make sure that even if you can't necessarily get on a face-to-face, that maybe you can Skype, Voxer, whatever it is, and that's what you're focusing on for that day. Or do you think there's room for fluidity in that, Amber?
I think there absolutely can be. I've learned this because as an entrepreneur, things happen. So I set a schedule and then I have to hold it loosely, right? I have to open-handed that, because if I clutch too tightly to a schedule and something happens, maybe not even in my business, maybe in my personal life, I have to be able to go with the flow and reminding ourselves we're the boss. Like we get to set the schedule, right? But I do think setting an expectation for your team to know what that plan is. So let's say it's not every Monday, but you look at your calendar coming up and you block out, you say, these 3 days in the coming month are my team days. This is when I'm going to focus on assignments and I'm going to focus on being available to my team. That then helps them know when to kind of how to structure their days, their weeks, their month. My team knows that Mondays are my day. So a lot of them will come out of the weekend and immediately have questions to me or requests to me, whatever that might look like. And so I think it can be fluid. You just do have to probably give your team a reasonable expectation of what they're going to be looking at from you.
I think it makes sense. For me, I'm extremely organized. Like even my VA was like, oh my gosh, the way you organize your files, it's like insane. I'm like so excited to learn from you, you know? So I am very, very organized when it comes to like spreadsheets, you know, like, or anything that it works on this way. Like for me, it's simple to do. At the same time, I'm thinking, okay, so now you're the one doing the spreadsheets and I'm checking the spreadsheets. You know what I mean? Like the first times, you know, you show them and things like this. But I do work, like I have worked with so many different personalities. And as you mentioned, like every personalities, it's so hard for them to like, if you tell, or, you know, like people like, if you're talking about like horoscopes and things like this, no, if someone is like fire, you tell them this is the time we're gonna meet, and they're gonna run away, you know, they're gonna be like, no, thank you. For me, this is like so normal. So I do think like I'm sure there is a way to find a place where you're like, okay, so like office hours, no, like this is the space where I am at, and then jump on the call and then let's meet. And if not, there is need for flexibility, then we have the flexibility, but just creating this space also that people don't feel like at the end of the day, they are hired, so they should come on to the things. But, you know, because what VAs, sometimes they have so many clients. Also, I find this sometimes a little bit struggling, that I'm like, okay, so she's like, I'm going to work from like, let's say from 9 to 12 for these days. So she tells me her availability on the schedule. And then I'm like, okay, so what, like today, oh no, today I'm working from 4 to 7. I'm like, well, tell me, because I plan my schedule based on like your hours, because then I send you the things beforehand. No, so if you like, maybe I could have had 5 more hours to send you these tasks. Instead of me maybe rushing for you, because then I end up working for the VA, you know?
And I think that is so often I find with a lot of our clients, they'll start working with us and their hope is that they just want to hand things off. And that it's funny because I feel like a lot of times when my clients finally sign with me, they've probably known that they've needed a VA for a while, but they've resisted or they've held off. And then suddenly they're in crisis mode and they're like, I need someone, like they're up to their neck in the water, right? And they need a life preserver thrown out to them. The only problem with that is that the onboarding process of starting to work with a VA, it's a time commitment. There's a process to it. You have to give the content, you have to get in sync with one another. And so it can feel like at first you're working for the VA in order to get them set up. But the hope is that that starts to transition. I always follow that model. You know, I do, you watch, you know, I do, you help, you know, that whole process until you finally are at the point where like they do and you can let them run with it, but it can take a little while. And so I get that you need a VA who is going to be super communicative with you, that is going to be very clear, and also that the follow through is really high. And so those are the kinds of things when you're interviewing for a VA, those are the kinds of questions to definitely be asking. Also, when you ask for references, those are the types of questions to ask the references. What was your working style with them? What kind of flow did you have? What obstacles did you run into with working with them? Those are the kinds of things that are going to help you know if they fit your personality and your work style, because a VA should complement. They shouldn't pull away. They shouldn't be in contrast. They should complement who you are in your working style. I say with Socially Inspired, we're not really just task managers. I don't want to just have tasks. I love the idea of linking arms with someone and helping them run faster towards their goals. If I'm holding them back or I'm sitting on the ground, and they're having to drag me along, that is not helpful to them. That is actually a distraction from their business. So those are the types of questions as you're looking for a new VA or you're looking to add to your team, I would definitely incorporate those into your interview questions.
Thank you. Yeah, I think that is very important. Yeah, now that I'm in the search for new ones.
Amber, as you were telling that analogy, and I know you mentioned it like even in your bio, that linking arm things, but when you were describing it, I was immediately thinking about the three-legged race. That's where it literally, like visually, I was thinking about it in a three-legged race. And you're like, right, the linking arms, it's like the three-legged race. So you have to be kind of in sync and in step. And at first, those first few steps feel kind of hard. You have to figure out who's naturally leading, who's, got the good direct, whatever it is. And then like, I find as you progress in the race, if you haven't raced with them before, then that kind of begins to speed up and becomes more fluid over time. And I think you guys kind of both touched on it a bit, but it is more about those pieces, how you work together, the communication style, their availability. How does that work for you? Because sometimes the specific experience isn't necessarily the end all be all. It's all these other components. You can teach somebody who's teachable, but if they're not and they don't work in the same flow, then it doesn't matter if they understand your program or who've worked and done the kind of market research or any of the things you want. It still won't gel, right? You'd almost rather the other way and then teach them how you want than somebody come in fully kind of loaded and armed with their own expectations and kind of experiences on it, I would think.
I've approached it both ways. I have people on my team who had a vast experience, a ton of knowledge, and I brought them on for that. I also have brought people on my team who were kind of brand new out of the gate, and I viewed that as an opportunity to shape them and mold them the way that I wanted them to work. So there's both approaches. I think that you definitely want to mesh with them. Like if you get on a call and it feels like there's this tension that's always there, that's not enjoyable. So you want your personalities to mesh, but you also want to really understand how they work, when they work. One of the things that I required when I was adding my most recent 2 team members is that they had to be North America based. And the reason for that is because my work hours need to match their work hours. If we have an 8-hour time difference, it makes it very difficult if they're trying to ask me questions or I'm trying to ask them questions, because then there's always that lag time. They're messaging me when I'm sleeping and those kinds of things. So even though there are a ton of amazing VAs that are outside of the United States or North America, for me, that was one of the requirements. I just had to have someone that was going to be able to engage with me during my working hours.
Makes sense. I worked across time zones and it can be a pain. I was like working 9 hours ahead and I had meetings with the States, and then their meetings were like at 9 a.m. And for me it was already 7 p.m. I'm like, I want to go home, or I had days off on Fridays and they had days off on like they were working on Fridays. So they would just schedule it. I'm like, I don't work on Fridays, It is like time difference. It can be a struggle for sure. Also, it's great if you're working across time zones and you need to deliver something, then it can come into your advantage.
That can definitely be at your advantage. I supported a client for a period of time that was in Italy, and we struggled with a lot of the, she would message me and then I would message her when I got up, but then it was already dinner time for her and she was trying to, prepare food for her family. So it can be a little bit of a struggle. It's not impossible, but that can be a struggle. But I do think that for a VA, either they need to be close to your time zone, or operate with the understanding that they're going to need to understand where you are time-wise and what your needs are. And so that's another great thing to incorporate into your interview process. What is your flexibility with hours? Because one day I might be in this time zone and another I might be here, and I need to know that there's some flexibility in your availability. If they're only wanting to work a 9 to 5 for East Coast time zone in North America, that might be complex for you depending on where you're at.
Perfect. Yeah, I think it's I think all the things that you shared are very smart. Beyond smart, I think they're like, it's very wise the way you see it. Yeah, I like
the other thing with SOPs that will help you retain the knowledge that you've already worked through with one VA. So as you are training them, as you're bringing them on, as you're refining your process with them, making sure all of that's documented so that you don't have to recreate that should you have to bring someone else on. That's something that I am in the process of working on, is every new service that we provide, every new person that I bring on, there is a new SOP that is going up in our operations manual. Because, for instance, I have a Reels manager. She is fantastic. I hope she never leaves me. But should she say, hey, I have to go, I would want there to be a seamless transition of bringing a new Reels manager on, not just for me, but for our clients. So it's really important to me that everything is documented so that should I need to bring someone on to replace or add to the team, that's a very smooth transition. So I would definitely say getting those things documented will help you when you have to make a transition.
How do you document those, and how do you think about those? Like, especially if you're busy and go, where is is that something you keep in your Trello account or your Asana, whatever it is that you use? And is there a way to, I don't know, almost like add to it or keep the notes, like an app on your phone? Or I'm always about that, because sometimes when I'm getting creative, like I'm laying in bed in the morning, or I'm in the shower, I'm driving the car, and I'm always like, okay, I have to have these apps that I can record so that I don't forget the genius thing that I just came up with. So how do you keep track of it so you can easily get it out of your head without sitting there feeling like it's this big task and now I got to spend like, I don't know, a day, 2 days thinking about like every little aspect of it? Is there a simple way of creating the SOPs and figuring out your onboarding and stuff?
So I use Google. I have a Google Drive that then there is a link to that inside of our Trello board. So my folks on my team can access that at any time. I do use my notes, whether it's voice memo or just writing the notes on my phone a lot, because like you, I'm not always at my computer when something strikes me of, oh, I really need to make sure that I add that or I note that. And then this is the other part. So I do Mondays for my team, and then Fridays are my CEO days. So those are the days that I commit to building structures and working on my own business, on Socially Inspired. And that is when I will put on my Trello board, my task list, hey, I want to think through these 3 SOPs and I want to write those out so that every week I am moving us forward in that. Again, I know myself, if I don't block out the time and dedicate the time, I will spend all my time working on my clients' businesses and not working on mine. So that was a big priority as I went into this new season, knowing I want to make some transitions where I'm doing less of the management, more on the coaching side. I had to put some things in place so that there's not a loss there. Most of my clients, they sign with me. They don't necessarily sign with Socially Inspired. So I have to start creating the Socially Inspired method, so to speak, so that as I step away from that, there's not a sense of loss there. So yeah, my weeks are structured where Mondays are my team day, Fridays are my CEO day, and then Tuesday through Wednesday are my client-facing getting stuff done days.
I do a similar thing, but I also just actually think out about like how many hours a month I want to spend on particular things too, so that if there's a specific day that I allot to XYZ, or even like I give chunks of my morning time before I'm seeing clients or doing these recordings. But then I also sit there and look at an overall amount where I want to spend like a minimum of time every month, say on a few key things, so that this way, you know, maybe not every morning I'm doing 30 minutes, say, of each of these things, but maybe I'll bang out like a good chunk of it over different times. But as long as I get that time in the business, then that's what works for me on some things. Whereas other things, I'm like, that totally has to be more of a scheduled thing and a structured thing that I do on certain times. Yeah.
Well, yeah, I think there's a lot of different ways you can approach it, but time management is definitely a big factor when it comes to not just running your business, but growing it. So really thinking about that was one of the challenges that I had to give myself, that if I want to grow my business, I have to invest in it, and that requires my time. And so I made that commitment. And on Fridays, I schedule my social media. There was a period of time I had like 6 months where I was not on my social media at all, which is ironic because I manage other people's social media, it's horrible. And so I really had to take that time to step back and say, if I am investing all my time into my clients, but I'm not investing it back into my own growth, it's going to be stagnant. It's going to fizzle out. And so that commitment to writing my SOPs, getting those operations underway, making sure that my business has a strong foundation, that time commitment has been huge for, I feel like, moving the needle where I need it to go.
How do you feel about that? Like, is that something, because I know, Lani, you travel quite a bit sometimes. So how do
I'm
you
out like at least once a month for like a week, like minimum. Like this is like and this is because I stopped a little bit of my traveling because I realized I was like not focusing all my energy into it and into the business. So I kind of put a rule to myself that said like 1 trip per month. Short trips are okay, like an hour and a half drive and things like this. These I do like anyway, I do it once a week. But longer trips, where I require to travel for more than like, let's say 5 hours, then I kind of had to cap it. And just because of the growth of the business, right? Because I love traveling and I can work from anywhere, but at the end of the day, the traveling time does consume quite like time and energy, so by the time you get there, you need to rest a little bit, and then you need to kind of ground, and get into the place and like get in a spot. And so many times I've traveled with other people, so then you need to manage their timings with your timings. So I think it can be a little bit like tricky to manage all these like all these details. For me, what has worked is that like I have a priority list and I know what I have to do, and then I slot chunks of hours. So instead of like one full day of everything for the business, I just make sure that every day I do one thing that is for my business. So this is a way that I found that worked for me, because I realized that I was not really focusing. Sometimes I was just like kind of like taken over by the projects, and then my business was kind of like hanging out there. And I was one day I was just like, no, you know what, every day I just do one thing, even if it's like a 10-15 minutes thing, it doesn't matter. Every day there's one thing that I do. And then the other thing that I implemented is that whatever I do in my project is something that is feeding my business. So if I'm doing research for hotels and like venue scouting and things like this, I'm not just scouting for this event, I'm scouting for any future event. So when I come back to it, then I don't have to go and research again, Joshua Tree, I have it, like I already have it. I already like made a list, like how many rooms, so depending on the space, I already know the capabilities of the spots. And then this is going to work for me in the future. So I don't know when, but it's going to work for me in the future. And then maybe we'll just need a refresh, but it won't need to be done from scratch, because I just looked for hotels that have 70 rooms this time. I'm already kind of like combing the whole area in a way. So just trying to really bring this eye of like everything is kind of feeding the retreat planner, not just the one project and then you kind of remove everything from there. No, I get a lot of like ways of I do, and everything it comes from all these events, and I used to have so many SOPs. I was like really good at it. Like whenever I created something new, it already came with an SOP in hand. I think I just kind of forgot to do it this time, because I was just like kind of like going with like, okay, this is happening and priorities, and do this first. But yeah, I used to do this for myself, because I was like, if I ever leave or I want to train someone else, then I already have it done, and I don't have to go through the hassle of creating 30 SOPs in 1 week, like, so I think SOPs are great. I just need to get them done.
I think it shifts. I feel like in those moments, you start to shift from a place of your business running you and you are running your business. And I have felt that sense of discomfort of feeling like my business is running me. And that is not the place that I want to be. So the more I can get out of my brain and into a place where the operations are running smoothly, that helps me feel like I am actually in control, as opposed to always feeling like I'm in a hamster wheel, right? So I do think the SOPs will help you as whether it's you're bringing on another planner or you have another VA, whatever it might look like for you as you continue to grow, your way of doing it, your way of approaching it will be documented, and that will be reflected in the work that is done for you.
Yeah, because the growth of this company, I already have the long-term vision, and definitely it's not me running all the retreats.
And that's the only way to scale. You have to have those SOPs in order to scale. Otherwise, it all stays in your brain and it's there. You just have to get it out.
True. Yeah. I'm getting my, I'm getting all of these great ideas here. So thank you.
Yeah. So what's your biggest takeaway from this, Lani? And what do you think you're going to do with all of this fantastic information that Amber's shared with us? What's your next step, or how do you think it's going to help you move the needle on these pieces that you're doing right now?
Well, my brain always flares up when there's great ideas in the room. So I have so many, already so many things that I'm just going to start executing. So first, I still have 10 days or something with my actual VA. So what I'm doing, because I'm not hiring, I want to hire someone properly, and not just run to the next VA just to cover a void. And it's also summer, so I think my business goes a little bit slower, so it's okay. But first, I'm gonna talk to her and make sure that everything that she's creating now, she's kind of writing the notes down on how she's doing it, so she can give me a little bit of the bone structure for the SOP for all these technical things that she now knows how to do because I trained her, right? So for that to start, so I can get the SOPs on what she has been doing so far. So, on all this research and everything. So I'm going to start with those SOPs at the beginning, right? And I think that's a great takeout for me. Just a great reminder of, this is something amazing to do. And then from there, I'm gonna take it into the space of now I'm gonna hire a new person, and really taking into consideration how I hire this person and how the communication skills are so important for me, something that maybe I haven't really paid much attention to in the past, as a question to be asked, something that I asked in the front, and time zones and availability, because I do have sometimes last minute.com situations, I'm in a meeting and they're like, oh, we need to have the bio of this person, and I'm like, okay, and I don't want to be the one oh, wait a second, let me Google it. I want to send a message and be like, okay, so can you please research this person for me and just send it right across right now, and then we just read it. Because if I lose my focus and I go research for something, then I'm not in the meeting anymore, and then I could be missing out on something that is actually quite important. So flexibility on time and all these questions that need to be asked on what you're looking for when it comes to BA. And definitely, I think I'm going to ask for a few more referrals and just be like, okay, so can I talk to one of your previous bosses that I didn't do last time? I got referrals. Everyone said, oh, they're good, but I never went towards a next step of more questions. I think I could have asked a few more deeper questions. What did you struggle with? These kind of things. And yes, and then bringing in these specific times to give accountability to the team. I think this is something that is very important for me. sometimes I think at the beginning I struggle with the like telling them how long it should take them to do something, because sometimes I'm super fast. And I had a VA once, and I was like training her, and she struggled so much because she was taking forever to do things. And I was like just checking her timings, you know. I said like, well, this should take you like half an hour to be done, you know, not 2 hours. And she was just like losing her mind, you know. It was like, oh no, why, you know, like all these questions. So I think I need to also work inwards a little bit into like setting like realistic timings, and maybe ask, okay, so how long do you think this would take you, like realistically, you know. And then from there be like, okay, does this sound real, or does this sound like she's adding up hours just for the sake of it, you know? So yeah, I think there's quite a few very good things that I can take away for this new amazing VA that it's coming my way. I kind of already think I know someone who might be a good fit, but I don't know. I have like 6 that are always texting me like, hey, you know, I would love to work with you. So let's see.
And if I could just add one thing to the thing you said about the timing, Leni, if you know how long it takes to do something, I think it's totally reasonable when somebody starts to give them a little extra time to do it, but set in the expectations that they should be able to master being able to do it within that time zone. So that's part of like the expectations and the onboarding piece is like, let's learn to do it right on this end, but going forward, like, I don't want you spending 2 hours on things that I know for a fact, like it's not an arbitrary thing. You know how long it takes to do the thing, right? So you want them to work towards that. If they're not, then maybe, and maybe Amber can touch on this before we wrap up here, but if they're not, is it about how they've been trained to do it? Or is it that it's really just not in their wheelhouse and it's something that's really hard for them to grasp? So does it make them not useful to you at all? I don't know. Does it mean you maybe add somebody else who does those pieces or use another team member to do it? But if you know something takes you a certain amount of time, then that's part of your expectations and your onboarding, and that's a goal you work towards. You can't just accept that, oh, it takes this person 2 hours to do this half an hour thing. Right?
Yeah, I think I had an experience where I had another VA, and she was wonderful, and she actually set me up for the path that I'm on now, really helping me get some of my systems in place. But one of the things that I was running into is that her time, her availability was very limited because she was doing this after her 9 to 5 work hours. And ultimately, she was not completing tasks in the timely manner that I needed. You know, some of my turnarounds need to be sometimes 24 or 48 hours, and it was taking longer than that. It wasn't a reflection of her being a poor VA. It was a reflection of it no longer being a fit for us as we move, for me and for my company as we move forward. So I think always evaluating if someone is the fit doesn't mean that you're telling them, oh, you're bad at this. It just means this is no longer a fit, or it is not a fit at all. And I know that can be hard it was hard when I had to say, hey, I'm going to have to go a different direction with this, but it was the right thing to do. And honestly, I think in a lot of ways was a relief for her because she was struggling to keep up. So I think always having some kind of system for evaluation, whether it's a formal process where you sit down with them and you go through an evaluation, or it's just something that you're evaluating. You know, if you have an onboarding timeframe where they should be up to speed within the first 60 days, if they're not, then one, you can just you simply have the conversation where you say, hey, what's going on? What are you struggling with? How can we help you? Or you can say, hey, this is not really a fit. I need this to fit within this time frame.
Awesome. Thank you guys both so much for being on today. I learned a lot from both of you and really got to know you guys a lot better as well. So as we wrap up, I think I'll start with Leni. Why don't you just tell everybody listening how they can get a hold of you, all those kinds of things. Also, these will be in the show notes, but why don't you wrap up and just give us all the juicy details on you and how to get a hold of you.
Of course. Well, you can visit my website. It's called theretreatplanner.com. So very easy to remember. And over there, I have like most of the information of how I work with, and then you can book a discovery call and we can just jump on a call and have a chat and see if if what you're looking for is something I can help with, because I do either on-site, I run the events, and I also do coaching for people who want to do the retreats, but they don't want someone on-site. They just want to get all the nitty-gritty information of how to do it, and how I work with, like, I work with like 3 E's for me that are like energetics, expertise, and experience. So I really bring these 3 into the combination. So just sometimes I just have like coaching, consultation calls more than coaching, on how you can do it. And you can come and just, we can have a chat and see if how I can help you to really thrive in your business when you're planning a retreat. And then I'm going to be launching very, very soon an online retreat that is called Mastering the Art of Retreat Planning. So it's a online retreat that has few spiritual practices. So you have like cacao ceremonies, sound healing, voice activation, meditation, really to connect with your heart. And the ultimate purpose is to find the reason, really the purpose of why you're building a retreat. And from there, once you find this, and we go into visualization, really to just already see the retreat happening, to a part where we go into the technical parts, where I show you in one spreadsheet how you can manage your whole retreat and not lose your head over it, like very, very simple. And at the end of the retreat, you come out with a full plan retreat for yourself, ready to launch. So actually within 3 days, you can plan your next retreat or your next series of retreats if you already have an idea of like a theme that you want to go with. And just really from a very creative space. So it's not just the technical business side, but really we're connecting inwards and finding out why we're doing this. Why do you want to do a retreat? Is there a real reason, or is it just because everyone is doing it? And then take it from there. So this is coming very, very soon. So I'm very excited about it. This is my baby. It has been growing for quite a few months.
Well, we look forward to keeping an eye out for it and hearing about it. I'm sure you'll be sharing it on all your social media as well. So yeah, thanks for sharing that. Amber, off to you to just wrap us up and tie this all in with a nice pretty bow on how to get a hold of you.
Well, you can check me out at sociallyinspiredmanagement.com. That's actually a great place for you to check out the management side, the coaching side, and then also the Inspired Biz podcast. And you can take a listen there. Also do an inquiry to become a guest on the Inspired Biz. That platform is really a place that I am wanting to provide space for people to share their stories, their entrepreneurial stories, and hopefully bring inspiration to other people on their own journey. So if you want to check out all of those things, my website's probably the best way to do it. I also have a free offer of the top 5 ways to optimize your social media. So if you are looking to try to really maximize the tool of social media for your business, that is a great downloadable digital offer that you can get through my website.
Awesome. Thank you so much. I know lots of us are always trying to find ways to maximize our social media. So thank you in advance for sharing that with us. I want to thank you ladies again for coming on the show, kind of going through this journey together. So sharing, Amber, how you help, Leni, sharing with us this piece of the puzzle that can really just help you, right, move forward and be able to focus on other things, and working through that kind of on the air, on the recording with us and sharing it. So thank you ladies both so much. And thank you everybody for tuning in. I look forward to connecting with everybody soon. Hey, thank you for listening to The Shift with myself, Kelley McNicoll. I would love it if you could go to your favorite podcast app or the YouTube channel, hit that subscribe button, and leave us a review. Your feedback is always valuable, and it'll help us reach more people and make an impact. So we'll see you back here next week. And remember, you don't always have to know exactly where you're going, but if you get up and show up every day in whatever way you can, and you do it with an open mind and heart, rooted in your values, mission, and with intention, then you will always find yourself exactly where you're supposed to be. I promise.